What if you had it as a master or a slave with one of the master and the other as a slave, and the slave is a master? Then wouldn't it offload some of the work onto the slave and distribute the load more?
Sure.
So then the slave wouldn't just be sitting there twiddling his thumbs all day long?
Yeah, that might be a consideration. But we're getting too far afield. I want to make it the easiest as possible for you. So I would say, okay, I already know what my master server is. It's going to be master for this domain, it's going to be master for this domain, this domain, this domain. Whatever domains I have you do, and you're going to do a couple more later on. But this is what you need to send me as an email. Okay, then you need to go configure. So that's the glue records, the highlighted part. That's the glue records by which I'm going to inject you into the whole DNS hierarchy. And I'm doing that part. I'm inserting the glue records. You don't have to do it. You have to send me the email, and then you have to go configure your master and slave appropriately. So, configure the master authoritative server to be the master for your domain. Configure names in this domain for at least 4 IP addresses. Note that these addresses most likely won't be assigned to any running computers. That's fine. We're after translations. They could be running computers. They could be any computer in the world. I don't really care what your IP addresses are there. I'm just looking to make sure DNS works. In fact, I'm just coming up with a good idea for an assignment. But could I just think with me for a second? On the last assignment we did virtual host I created a website for juicy.thegummibear.com or something like that, squishy, I don't know. Could I also have my web server serve websites for fred.it.cit.dixie.edu? Sure, if all DNS was working correctly, if I had the correct virtual host. So maybe that's something we'll do, because...
Make some separate web servers?
What?
Make some separate web servers and different domains?
No, you do it on the exact same machine, you just create different virtual host files.
Oh, cool.
That's it. Okay. So configure the slave to transfer data from the master, and then we do the same options as you did for, this is all the same for DNS simple, do your dig test, make sure everything works, and then your submission file, again, now I'm going to give my master address, my slave address, the domain that I requested, fred.it.cit.dixie.edu, and then I also want your original NS1, I guess I should put thegummibear.com, ns2.thegummibear.com, then all of your hosts, or your 4 hosts that I should do lookups for inside of the Fred subdomain. So you're going to add 4 A records at least to your Fred or whatever your new subdomain is that you requested. And yeah, you can go back, and if you're stuck on that, the only 2 files you're editing, and in fact you don't even have to, oh, I guess you'd have to go to Slate. So you're editing etc bind named.conf.local to add the definition for, or the declaration for fred.it.cit.dixie.edu, that little subsection. I would copy and paste my first one and just paste it right below and change the information that I need to. And then I would also take the existing copy of my db.thegummibear.com and copy it over and make my new zone file for db.fred.it.cit.dixie.edu. And then the slave, you just edit named.conf.local. And that's it.
Long domain name.
Yeah, that's a really long domain name.
So we can find all of this how to do again in the
Yep.
slides all DNS, the DNS client one that's right here.
Uh-huh. Oh, wait, I don't think it was the client. It was called, DNS Simple.
I mean, for this
Oh,
slide.
DNS, that's not a slide.
Yeah, you're on week 3. We're on week 5.
Yeah, but still. Where's the screenshots? Oh, it's way up here. DNS master, DNS slave how to. That's where you. I didn't take screenshots for this one. You're gonna go back, and it's the same thing as you did back here, except you'll do it for your new domain. So, any questions that you have yet?
I'm just trying to figure out what the DNS simple slides meant, because I don't know, they're kind of really short and a little bit cryptic.
That's why I explained it in class, but
Yeah, no, I did pay attention. So I'll just.
I agree.
Remember.
Some of my slides are stupid, so. So going one step further, once I delegate that subdomain to you, fred.it.cit.dixie.edu, you could create different A records in there. And then you could actually, in turn, you could delegate a subdomain to somebody else in the class. So you could have a subdomain called fruitloops.fred.it.cit.dixie.edu, and someone else could have control over that subdomain. And then they could take that and, anyway.
Can you put subdomains and subdomains?
Yep.
I
Yep.
can see some web things that are just like 20 miles long.
Yeah, they could go really long. I don't know what the maximum there is, but 256 characters probably. Okay, so let's look where we're at. We wanted to talk about, so we talked about HTTP. Let's go to processes. It's our, okay, so we did HTTP, talked about DNS. Now we're gonna switch gears again a little bit and talk about processes. And we probably hit on this a little bit in IT-1100, but we're gonna hit it a little bit more. So remember the kernel. Linux kernel is in charge of memory management, coordinating activities between the input and output devices, whatever. Doles out CPU time, performs other critical low-level tasks. The kernel's loaded early in the boot process, and it's the kernel that's responsible for managing every other piece of software on a running Linux computer. All right. So normally, at boot, one process is started by the kernel. And this process is found in /sbin/init. Then everything else is managed by init and called child processes. Sometimes processes, they use the word daemon in Linux terminology. Internally, the kernel maintains process information in a process table. Tools such as ps and top enable you to view and manipulate this table. Every process has a process ID, init's ID is normally 1. Each process also has a parent process ID, except for init, of course, because that's at the top of the process hierarchy. Let's look. A shortened version of this is just PSAUXF. So that's what I'm going to do. So, yay, that was just a lot of gobbledygook that just printed out for us. But this is kind of, it's our process tree, and it kind of presents our, not in a great format, but for example, this GDM session worker. That's some sort of process. And underneath that, it spawned a child process called that, and that spawned a child process called this, and then I have a GNOME shell, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so we can kind of see what's going on there a little bit. If I come up, it looks like it's sorting it descending by process ID. So it doesn't actually show me PID of 1, which is init, and sometimes it has an alias called something else that we'll probably see in a minute. But process ID 2, okay, there's some K thread, and there's all these other processes that have been started underneath that. So PS is a good command that we'll look at a little bit more. All right, so now, yeah, that's probably good. Let's do that. So I'm just going to launch an example process, like something really easy, XEyes. Just little googly eyes that follow my mouse around when it comes default installed with Linux. But we know we can see that process is running. Let's first figure out the process ID of XEyes. So while it's running, I'm going to jump into another tab here, and I'm going to do ps aux, and I'm going to grep for XEyes. Are we okay with ps aux? That says, show me a process tree. A says, show me all the processes. U says, show me all processes for all users, and X, I don't know. But
The good thing Windows does not have googly eyes.
right, I know, that's why it's so awesome. So which line do I want to look at?
The one that doesn't say graph.
The one that doesn't say grep. right? So a lot of times I'll have students that say, oh, I ran the command, and that's the PID. That's the process ID of your grep command that just finished running. If I do it again, notice that that grep command had a different process ID right here.